Hello everyone, in this video we're going to be kind of wrapping up our little series on choosing a trainer with this thing called Cessna, Cessna 172, something like that. Cessna 172, which is now owned by Textron, so I guess we're a Textron 172. Now, this aircraft basically doesn't need an introduction. Most of you who are familiar with flight sims have probably seen this plane. Many of you who fly in the real world have probably flown in this plane, which is really, really cool. It is kind of the, I'm not saving the best for last, because I don't even know that I think this is the best trainer. But we're going to go ahead and take a look at it under the same lens we did the other ones. Let's go ahead and get started. So first things first, climbing inside this plane, easy. You just open the door and you sit down. Then you reach underneath the handle here. Let's see if I can see the handle. And you grab this little handle and go, and you pull yourself all the way up and you're good to go. Awesome. Next thing we notice, of course, climbing this airplane, this is the only high-winged airplane that we've climbed in so far. High-winged airplanes have these weird little quirks that are going to make you crazy, the least of which, if you want to put gas inside this thing, guess who has to climb on top of the wing in order to get to where the gas tanks are? Sigh. The other thing we got to watch out for with a high wing, too, is when we're landing, we don't get that added ground effect nearly as effective. That's funny. As we do when we're working with the low-winged airplanes. That's a good thing. It's a bad thing. Personally, I prefer it because I have a lot more control with my landing approach. If I'm a little fast, that's not the end of the world, and which is, like I said, kind of nice. We have the electric flaps, which is a good thing and a bad thing. If we have anything bad happening, of course, that means the flaps aren't going to go down. So if we have an electrical failure, keep that in mind. You're going to be doing a very, very high-speed approach. This particular version is packing both of the G1000s, which is awesome. We also have an automatic pilot. Equally awesome. And of course, everything else is designed to be just quite simple. This is a really, really, really already a pretty solid aircraft. Let's go ahead and get started. So first things first, we're going to make sure our fuel is turned on. You want to make sure that's pushed all the way in. Notice our fuel system, for one time, is nice and simple. We have two very, very large fuel tanks for an airplane of this size. And notice it's just a little fuel valve. It can take left or right. Generally, in the real world, what we do is we actually set it to the left when we're taxiing. Then we switch it to right during run-up to see if there's any issues with getting fuel into the engine from either side. For this case, I'm going to leave it on both and forget about it. That's awesome. You have no idea how nice it is to not have to be freaking out about the fuel system. Lighting wise, we're going to turn on the beacon light first. We're going to go pop on our master battery. This thing's going to get all grumpy at us. We're going to get this whole thing that's going to say, Carmen. And of course, it doesn't do that. It should, though. It really should. So we have that turned on right there. Normally what we do is we'd have to go ahead and prime it, which is super simple. We hit the fuel pump switch, push the handle all the way in, pull it all the way out, shut off the fuel switch, pull the mixture out, just like that. Now, if you're flying a carbureted Cessna 172, which is where all my experience with 172s is, I've never flown it. Actually, I take it back. I have flown a fuel-injected Cessna 172. You have to do this irritating process. The carbureted one, you code in, you crank it, you're fine. You have no issues with the thing being too rich or anything like that. But for us, because we're fuel-injected, we have to actually crank it and then jam in the switch at the same time. It's kind of a pain. Now, when it comes to 172s, of course, at least my experience, they're kind of hard to start. There's just something about that particular engine. All right, so we crank it, and as soon as it catches, we go ahead and push the mixture in. The thing goes ring and immediately catches. Now, one thing I don't like about the way they modeled this particular 172 is if I pull the throttle all the way out, this aircraft starts getting really, really slow on the RPM. In the real plane, if I want to get this thing up to 1,000 RPM, I push it that far. That is more than enough to get 1,000 RPM. But if I look up here, I'm getting less RPM, I swear. So I don't know what the deal with that is. Like I don't know. It's just something about the way they modeled it. All right, I'm going to flip on my avionics master real quickly. They're going to go pop up both sides. Again, we've got this lovely G1000. Good luck finding one of these. These are, at least where I fly, nobody has one of these in a 172. I think there's like 2 or 3 people tops that I've ever talked to. We always get the more classic models, or the more common thing that we're seeing now is you have a G5 right here, which, again, there's nothing wrong with the G5. They're really, really solid systems as well. I'm going to give it a couple more RPM. Again, look at how far my throttle is pushed in. This is not correct. And now I barely am getting 1,000 RPM. I don't know what the deal with that is. Come on, guys, fix that. So anyway, looking around too, let's see what else we have as far as benefits goes. Avionics, like I said, we're dealing with the G1000. This is the NX mod, so we have a couple of extra little quirks. Changing our radio frequency is super simple. You can see the visual up here, but one thing I love about this particular system is if I pick a frequency, it will automatically identify that frequency for me as to who I'm listening to, which is amazing because you normally have to kind of do it the hard way. If I came over here and dialed in Bradley approach or something like that, 12780, it'll tell me exactly which approach I'm on. Again, swapping, it's easy as pressing a button like that. So it's incredibly, incredibly simple system. I've got all my critical information down here. Again, this is more on account of the fact of the avionics more than anything else. We have our backup instruments located down there, and we have this really, really big chunky yoke. sitting there right in front of us. All right, so already we got a couple good things going for us, except I wish this was not in the way because now I can't see. Let's go ahead and get this thing going. So again, my throttle's pushed almost halfway forward, and I'm barely getting 1,000 RPM on this. I don't know what the deal with that is. It's just not what it does. You tap it, like, and it immediately jumps up on you. So we have no FADEC or anything like that on this airplane, so we're kind of on our own as far as handling and stuff like that goes, but it's nothing that we can't deal with. So we're going to go bouncy bounce. The nose wheel steering on a 172 is super easy to use. You push it, and it catches, and then you push it the other way, and it catches, and it kind of has this, like, I don't know, I like to call it like an over-damped sensation. That's just kind of the nature of the beast when it comes to the 172. We come up to a runway. Again, we're using the same weather conditions as we have before. I'm going to go ahead and take a left, and we're going to be using a runway 21 here at Simsbury Airport. The interesting thing is I've flown in and out of Simsbury Airport using a 172, so that's actually kind of fun. Of course, in the real world, the plane lands a lot sooner than it does in the sim, I swear. It's just something about it. So look at how far my throttle is. It's so weird. Anyway, so we're going to roll down the end of this runway and do a quick little donut. This aircraft has differential braking as well as nose wheel steering. So in the real world, you can basically stand on one of the brakes as well as kind of push it all the way forward, and you can basically turn on a dime. It's pretty impressive. I had a pretty funny moment where I had to park one of these airplanes between two airplanes, and what I ended up doing is basically shimmying it as far as I could, shut the engine off, got out of the plane, and then pushed it the last 6 inches it needed to go to get into the parking space. So it was one of those situations where it was like, yeah, I probably couldn't even have done that with a car. You'd have to like K-turned it like 30 times to get it in there. So that would have been a pain in the butt. So we're dealing with a short field here, but I know this aircraft is 180 horsepower, which will give us no problem at all getting airborne here. It's not a particularly hot day or anything like that, but it is not unusual to go ahead and use a pretty significant amount of power. Speaking of significant amount of power, I'm not used to having to push the throttle forward in order to make this taxi. In the real 172, you just let go of the brakes, and the thing will start going pretty darn fast on you before you really want it to. It's kind of the nature of the beast there. Do a little bit of a flight instructor shimmy here. Give just a little bit of power. Again, you're using the rudder kind of to help you out as well as the brakes. Come on. Come on. There we go. All right. Now we're all set. So what we're going to do is we're going to do a nice standard takeoff. We're not going to do anything fancy or anything like that. And let's go line ourselves up. Tap the brake. Sounds good to me. And we're just going to go double check our controls. You give them the quick little windshield wiper. Make sure everything's working properly. Looks pretty good. We're going to go ahead and give it full throttle. Give us a moment to get up to speed. And we're going to release the parking brake. And off we go. So I remember the first time I ever took off on one of these planes, and basically my first thing I couldn't believe is how much vibration there is. This thing is like down the runway here. It's not like that at all. Your whole head would be going basically. All right, zipping. Usually we can get airborne right before the turnoff. Yeah, right before the turnoff. I like it. All right, we're nice and airborne on this aircraft. We're basically going to go right to VX here so we don't go smacking into those trees. In the real world, those trees are a lot shorter, but there's a garbage dump right there, and it makes your plane vibrate like crazy. Well, not vibrate, shake, basically. All right, we'll go ahead and let the nose come down. We'll go pick up to our VY, which should be about 76 knots, if I recall correctly. Again, I never get to fly these nice modern ones, so I have to kind of go by memory there. All right, so first thing I notice, climb performance is not nearly as impressive as some of the other stuff that we've flown so far. I'm sitting here right at VY. My throttle is pushed as far forward as it's going to get, and I'm getting 750 feet per minute, which for a 172 is actually fairly typical. This is not the fastest climbing airplane in existence. You're certainly not going to be able to climb the Diamond. That thing is just way too aerodynamic. We're eating a lot of our efficiency here on account of the fact that this aircraft, like I said, it's a big airplane. You've got that huge, like that big bar right there connecting up on the wing, which is all going to be creating a lot of extra drag for us. Trim-wise, I'm going to go ahead and give it a couple bangs of trim here and make it easy. Typical flight simulator trim, it accelerates and basically runs away on you, making it very difficult to trim it smoothly. The real plane, I swear I touched the trim wheel only when I changed like power. Like it just grooves is usually what I call it. Kind of a fun way to look at that. All right, so we're going to go climb up here. I'm going to use a little bit of right foot to keep us straight. We'll go ahead and turn my terrain off because I'd love to see where we're going here. I've got a little bit of right foot there. And you can see we have the big reservoir, which we always use as kind of our little training point there to zip to. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to enjoy this nice leisurely climb. And I'll see you folks when we get to the reservoir. All right, we're just about hitting the reservoir now. Again, this is the Barkhamster Reservoir for those who want to check this one out. It's absolutely gorgeous in the real world. There's some really nice hiking trails, and there's actually a beach that you can swim in. But man, that water is never warm. Anyway, enough of that. So now we're up to altitude. It's time to kind of put the Cessna 172 through its paces here. We'll go ahead and start this time with our steep turn. Kind of getting this thing a try. Steep turns in this plane, oh my gosh, I've done it a few times. Basically, what you're going to do is you can do an audible increase in RPM, and when you hear the audible increase in RPM, you go ahead and tilt the plane over just a little bit. And you go ahead and pull back. Now on a 172, when you do a steep turn to the left, it's actually not bad at all. When you do a steep turn to the right on the flip side, expect to really, really, really have to fight the controls. One of the things I actually do during steep turns to the right is what I will do is I'll grab the trim wheel and pull it back twice so that I basically get some free stability there in order to make it a little bit simpler. All right, that's pretty good. Again, not bad. It's about on par, I would say, with some of the lighter aircraft. Like very, very easy handling, and I'm not fighting it or anything like that. So go ahead and do it to the right. Like I said, highly recommend you go ahead and give it 2 whacks of trim if you're in the real plane. Oh, it does not like this direction. I'll pull the nose down a little bit. Oh my, this is, yeah, it does not like taking right turns here. Does not surprise me though. And I'm just going to enjoy a nice little rotation. Yeah, it's about on par with the Diamond. I say it's slightly more sensitive than the Diamond. You know, it's not doing anything too crazy. It's not doing anything too slow. And we're going to come fly ourselves right out of it like that. A lot of left foot when you take that turn normally. And we're good to go. Not bad. Not bad at all. That was actually not quite as easy as the little tiny planes, but I'd say it's about on par with the Diamond, but probably a little bit easier than the Warrior as well. All right, go ahead and give ourselves a couple whacks of trim here. We're at the right RPM and everything like that to go ahead and explore stalls. Oh boy. So the fun thing is when I first learned to stall in the real world, it was right here. So it's actually kind of weird coming back, so to speak. So I'm going to go let the plane slow down here. We're going to go ahead and dump the flaps so we get our first notch right away. Get a little slow, we dump our 2 notches. Now, an approach stall on a 172 goes bup, 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 and basically stops flying. That's the. I know that sounds like a technical term again, but that's literally what it does. There's no like drama, it just stops flying. All right, hold the nose up, hold the nose up. It's going to start getting angry at us, and ideally the nose should just kind of dump on us. And there it is. Nice. Yeah, that's about right. That's actually, yeah, that's about right. Not bad. Huh. Nice. That was nice. Okay. Good. Good. That's correct. That's actually what it's supposed to do. I like that. All right. So now what we'll do is go ahead and get rid of those lovely flaps there. We'll go ahead and stand on our tail here. And on a 172 on a cold day, you can get as slow as about 25 before the thing actually drops out on you. And getting slow is 30. And there's the spin. Uh-oh. Yeah, that wasn't good. Let's go ahead and catch ourselves here. Looks good. Looks good. Go ahead and apply full throttle again. Go ahead and pull that nose up. And I'm going to try to hold a little bit of right rudder in this time and see if I can kind of beat it to the punch here. A little bit of right foot. Is it going to stall to the right? Which way are we going? That's right foot. Yeah, it doesn't do that. So normally what would happen is we'd drop pretty flat there. So it's not terrible, but you got to pay attention. So again, I don't know, 7.5 out of 10 kind of thing. Let's go ahead and do it one more time, but this time let's be stupid. Cross-controlled, and let's do the spin. Is it going to spin? Are we going to spin? Are we going to spin? There it goes. There's the spin. And there's my spin recovery. Nice. Nice. Okay, that's actually pretty good. Nice. I'm just going to say nice. That was actually not bad at all. All right, so we can see as far as performance goes, the approach stall, nice. The departure stall, it's usually a little bit more stable than that. And the spin was completely recoverable, even though I got that going pretty nasty there. Usually we go about twice as high if we're going to do spin training, but it's okay. So now we're going to be interested in things like economy. So I'm going to go ahead and start bringing myself back in the general direction of our initial airport here. Give ourselves full throttle. I'd like to go ahead and give ourselves a little bit of altitude here. There's 2,500 feet. Like I said, we'll just level off for that altitude for today. And I'll get just a little tiny bit higher. Like I said, that's going to be our VY. You really got to kind of know the plane one way or the other. And we're going to go ahead and level off. Start riding the trim a little bit. Come on. Oh, my God. Oh, I hate that. That's not how trim works. Trim does not accelerate. It stays exactly where it's supposed to go. Look at that. Boop, boop, boop. And just like that, we'll go ahead and synchronize my heading mode. We'll go ahead and press the heading hold. Sweet. So now let's go ahead and see what we got here. So in this aircraft, when I fly around the real world, I typically do about 2,500 RPM. You can see we're way lower than that. So go ahead and give it some power here, and we'll go ahead and play the power game until we get it right in that 2,500 RPM there. I think that's pretty good right there. Nice. So we got a little traffic display. You can see we're heading right back to where we need to go right now. We are burning. Let's take a look. We'll go back. We'll do engine. We are burning right now. Not too bad. Not too bad at all. So if we go to our lean page, we can see exactly what our different systems. Yeah, there we go. We're doing 14.4 gallons per hour. That's actually a lot. So let's go ahead and do some lean here. I'm going to switch the assist mode, and I'm just going to start pulling out the little red handle. And what's going to happen is you're going to see the exhaust gas temperature start to increase here. You can see it starts to come up a little bit. Pull it back a little tiny bit more. And we're just looking for where the peak of the exhaust gas temperature is going to be. And usually what happens when you're doing this process is this thing will suddenly light up and says, you're 16 past peak or something like that. You'll see it when it happens. And continue to lean. Notice my RPM's coming up progressively, which means we're starting to get a more efficient engine. And I expect any second now that that thing's going to get really grumpy at me. Wait for it. Wait for it. Look at how far back I've got this handle already. 1550 is very, very high. Are you going to get mad at me or what, man? Yeah, you would never land it this far in this altitude. You just can't do that. Wow. That's interesting. Yeah, I found the peak. There it is. Do you see how it says delta peak? So we actually just found the point. 1, 2, 3, 4. And that's it. We're now at a peak lean efficiency here at about 2,500 RPM, which is exactly where we want to be. Nice. Go ahead and put that one away, and you can see now we're good to go. Now that I've leaned the mixture, we're showing, let's see here, go back to engine mode. Go back to system. I'm sorry. Boop, boop. Right there, we're doing 11.8 gallons per hour. So we're definitely using a significantly greater amount of fuel than we did in a lot of the other trainers. So we're definitely suffering in that regard. As far as speed goes at 2,500, which is, it's like 60 or 74% power or something like that. It's actually not even that high. We're showing about 111 knots, about 117 over the ground here. So we're moving fairly quick here. I would not call that the most efficient of the different aircraft that we've seen so far, but like, it's not bad. It's not bad. All right, so what I'm going to do is fast forward to our traffic pattern. All right, we're crossing midfield right now. We're going to put ourselves into the left downwind for a good old-fashioned runway 21 here. Oh, man, I'm getting flashbacks here. I remember one time I was coming for a landing on my solo, and somebody's like, oh, an airplane's landing. Let's land and watch it. Let's sit at the side of the road and watch it land. It's like, don't do that. Don't do that. Freaks me out. Okay, so 172 in a traffic pattern is pretty easy. The only weird thing about it is the fact that it likes to go really, really fast. Like, I know that's like, well, it's going to do what it's going to do kind of thing. Yeah, but it really, really wants to zoom. So let me go ahead and now level ourselves off here. Bring that nose back down to a more reasonable attitude. Come on, man. Get your attitude in control here, man. Come on. And we're going to pop down our first notch of flaps once we get a beam. We are a little far out for this traffic pattern right now. It's not the end of the world far out, but it is a little far out. All right, we're going to go ahead and pop down that first notch of flaps. We're going to let go of the control. Usually, as soon as you pop that first notch of flaps down, you reach over to the little trim wheel and go, trying to reset the trim on this thing in a hurry. I'm actually getting blown away here, so I'm going to bring myself back this way so I can kind of get a little bit closer to the airport that I'm now basically going to have to take my immediate turn. So we take our second flaps notch right here. We go ahead and pull the throttle back. We're trying to get about 65 knots. You can go a little fast. You can go a little slow. Like I said, this plane, because of its lack of a low wing, you won't have nearly as much difficulty. Notice, by the way, the presence of this wing is now blocking my field of view to the actual airport, which we're supposed to be landing at in a moment. Tricky. All right, that should put us about a beam, which it does. And you can see we're just about at the right altitude as well. So we're just going to keep cruising at this. Like I said, I'm lifting the nose up just a little bit to slow down. Let's go ahead and take this little left turn. Go ahead and pop that next notch of flaps down. Nose up just a tiny bit more. And we're looking pretty good. I think we're actually a little slow here. And the book says you can do 60 to 65 knots. 60 is fine, 65 is fine, 70 is a little fast. But like I said, this plane is going to want to slow down. Now this is, remember if you recall at the beginning I was complaining about the fact that this throttle is not quite right. It is not quite right. You don't need to do this much ridiculousness to keep this thing in control. It's just the way they designed it for some reason. All right, we're going to drop the right wing a little bit because, again, we have that lovely crosswind. 65 knots. My last notch of flaps is good. And we're a little high. We're just going to bring the nose down. And now we're perfect. Look at that. So now landing this thing, usually what happens is you're just about to hit the road, and then you go ahead and pull the throttle back. And now we're just going to aim for the big old number 21 there. Cross the threshold. And remember, we got that weird crosswind. Nose up. And this thing would sink like crazy, but this one does not. This one's actually floating like crazy. Oh my. That would actually be a go-around. You would not want to keep going that far. That was sketchy. That was sketchy. The rule is that the giant letter S, if you're not going on the ground, you're supposed to go around. So that was actually a go-around scenario. So one way or the other, that thing really, really wanted to float even at 55 knots. In my experience, the plane would just have and basically sunk right away. All right, so let's talk about what we've seen here. So first of all, avionics, excellent. The fuel system is really, really easy to use, thankfully. Performance-wise, climb was kind of slow. It did not have good fuel economy. Our cruise speed was pretty solid, definitely faster. Why does this thing need so much throttle? It's like I have the brakes on. Cruise speed wise, wasn't too bad. I would say, it's kind of our sort of benchmark. The Diamond was a lot quicker. The Warrior was a little tiny bit slower, but it was also more economical as well. One thing we do like about this, like I said, is relatively easy to see. You've got that low wing, which in the real world makes it drastically simpler to land because you don't have that ground effect kind of messing with you. It was very simple to maintain a continuous speed. With the electric flaps, which weren't too bad. The fuel system was very easy, especially because we had this stuff over here to kind of make it a little bit simpler for us. If I were to use this aircraft for the purposes of instrument training, I wouldn't have to worry about it too much because I have all the functionality kind of built in. We even have the ability to receive an ADF if we wanted to practice like an NDB approach or something like that. And we, of course, can do VOR, we can do GPS on this thing. If we were to have some kind of electrical failure on here, we'd be in trouble on account of the flaps, but we wouldn't be in trouble because we do have our backup instruments located right here. All in all, this is a pretty solid airplane. I definitely understand why everyone loves this one for the purposes of training purposes. You're definitely not going to be going like as fast as some of the other ones, and you definitely are going to be limited as far as range goes, because like I said, we have a pretty big tank on this thing, but that lack of speed is going to kind of bite you, and that lack of climb, especially when you get over 6,000 or 7,000 feet, really starts to get interesting. Like this plane's just like, not today. You'll know exactly what I mean. Cool plane. Like I said, if you do fly the other version that is available in Flight Sim, there's one that has traditional instruments. Also a really cool plane. It's got the one GPS in the middle and everything like that. I fly that one quite a bit more than I fly this one, only because that's the one that I'm most comfortable with. All right, so hopefully the series was interesting, and hopefully this video was interesting as far as giving you an idea of kind of how to pick out your trainer here. I'm not going to say one thing or another as far as which trainer you should go with. In general, by the way, the stall on this one was very good. In general, you want to pick the plane that makes most sense for you. Like, you're looking at the Diamond. Obviously, you got all the speed. It's a little less stable. You got the 172, nice kind of people's thing. You've got the Warrior, which is a little bit easier to handle. You've got the smaller, the two-seaters, which, in my opinion, at this time are just a little teeny tiny touchy, which is okay. Some people really like that. And if I were flying in VR, those little planes are twice as much fun. Other than that, as always, enjoy.